Lige wasn't Lige's grandfather.
It's confusing when you go to try to straighten.
Yeah, because I remember Lige's dad, Lige Monroe's dad, went to Hot Springs with Dad. I was telling you about the time I hit the guy hit the baseball.
Yeah, right. Well, my grandmother ended up taking her family up to Bella Vista. She quit going to Hot Springs, and she started going to Bella Vista, which is up in the north,
Yeah, it's a little north.
west.
See, Judge Ellie Young, who resigned to accept the attorneyship of the Consolidated Coal Company, and then he got into politics. Consolidated put him into politics, and the CNO, and they shipped all their coal and all hell. They had it in like Flint.
Well, Consolidated was that the Rockefellers?
I don't know, but it was one of the biggest coal. It's still a big coal company.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't know who's really the fellow behind him, but he was.
There he was, one of the.
Because he was their chief counsel in this area for.
Yeah. Her mother talks about, Lenore talks about Allie, the Rockefellers that got in touch with Allie about.
Yeah, I'd say they owned the Consolidated. Had a big interest in it. Oh, they always, but they'd all tell tales on Allie and Bill. It was always Bill was the culprit and everything.
Oh, I think Allie's pretty straight.
Yeah, Allie was other than drinking a little bit, Allie. See, Allie had the thing, I know when I was a kid, we'd go down there, and Allie always, he'd get the Dr. Nichols to write a prescription, right? You could only get whiskey with a prescription through the drugstore. They had two kinds, they had Old Granddad and Old,
One's generic.
two of the grade, what's the other, old,
Fitzgerald.
Old Forrester.
no, Old Granddad and,
Old Stein.
Jim Beam.
no, it wasn't, but there's two of them, Old
There's Old
Granddad
Crow.
and, no. But there's only two kinds you could buy, and it was all a bottle and bond, a 4-year-old whiskey, or older. And Judge Alley would tear out 4 or 5 of them prescriptions and give them to me in Camden, say go up there to the drugstore and bring his package back to me. Well, they'd wrap it up in a little bottle. Hell, there's 4 or 5 pints of Old Granddad and, God damn it, same time, I think maybe the same company really, but Old Granddad and something else. But all the 2 real prestigious whiskeys still are. And that's all you could get at the store, at the drugstore. But Judge Nichols would just give him prescription blank with plumb full. Nothing but a pint of whiskey on each one of them, And they'd sit down at old Young house there where they tore down to make a funeral home.
On Main Street.
Lane, on Main Street. And then they had it all the time down at the farm there in Bath County, there in Slate Creek. And they'd sit out in that big rocker and they'd bring him a drink out and he'd whack it off. They'd sit there and he'd say, but Judge Allie Young, Judge was a hell of a drinker himself, but he never let it bother him. He'd drink and keep going, well, the rest of the youngs would get down and let him make a damn fool out of him.
What'd you say, Old Granddad?
Yeah, Old Granddad and Old,
Old Forrester's on.
no, it's come Granddad and Taylor, Old Taylor. Old Taylor and Old Granddad, both had big orange label on it.
Yeah.
Signature now, Old Taylor and Old Granddad. The only 2 whiskeys you could buy.
And you got it by prescription.
That was
You got it by the prescription. It was
for
medicinal,
medicine.
for medicine only.
For medicinal
That is
purposes and
the,
snake bite.
doing the big
white
dry
neck.
spell. Judge Allie Young never did, and Dad, him and Dad, they'd bring it in here. They'd bring that apple brandy and they'd bring blackberry brandy and they'd defend all these damn bootleggers and moonshiners, and they'd bring it into them in the kegs. Little 20, 25 gallon kegs, I call them pony kegs. And they'd bring it in from Major County, and you got your apple brandy in the fall of the year. They didn't pick the apples, the good apples that they picked, they used for canning and stuff, but the droppers, the one that hit the ground was bruised, they'd get them, cut them up, and make mash out of them. And you got your Applejack or black, or apple brandy in the fall of the year. You got your blackberry brandy in the fall of the year. And you got peach brandy in the summer. And they always, they had that homemade whiskey, and I mean some of it real good. You couldn't buy it today for any amount of money. And they all, but hell, they had whiskey around them all the time. Entertained and drank a lot. But I don't know how many times I'd like to have a dollar bill for every time I'd gone up to Sparky's. Was the first I can remember you go up to Sparky's. Never did go to Batson's much. I don't think Doc was on to it. Doc would sell to them. I always went to Sparky's back in those days.
Somehow or another, Sparky sound like the likely place to
Bob
go.
Bishop, yeah, Bob sold them. Hell, old man Charlie Bishop was alive, and Bob's dad. Go down on Railroad Street to Bishop's.
This is one hell of a rowdy town. Probably to the ruination of a lot of the people who lived here.
Yeah. Still is to a point.
Had you showed Jim these pictures of the cemetery?
No.
Some of these don't work.
Yeah.
That's the one in,
In
Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah.
And of course, the beautiful pictures of the clay home.
That's the top of the.
Oh, I know
They got a monument, and then they got this
Is that the
statue
playground?
on top of it.
No, it's
It's the
torn
empty
down.
lot.
That's what I thought.
It's an empty parking lot with cars in it, but Bill very faithfully registered it for posterity, describing it in the new detail.
George Hill, January the 21st.
George Hill. Oh, that's one he just picked up. You just looked at.
Yeah. Sue Hill
Yeah, we were
Clay.
looking for Sue Hill Clays,
No,
parents are,
and
Well,
I think she was from Mississippi, Alabama.
Tennessee, I believe. Well, not Tennessee, I believe.
He
yeah,
just had his
that's,
birthday too.
Huh?
There's something about having birthdays and getting killed. He just had his birthday. His birthday's November 14th.
Oh, really?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
is that a carved veil over that face?
Yeah.
Huh? It looks natural. I just wondered if somebody went
Who-
out and put
what's
muslin over there.
It's-
What's
it's-
it like?
it's amazing.
14.
November
Huh?
14th, and oddly
It's amazing
enough,
how
I
on
don't know how in the world they did
on the
it.
rolls, my mother's birthday
To get
is,
those features underneath this thing that looks
December.
like a veil.
of
I asked him if that was
1897.
carved on there, that veil looked that
Sort
like
of
seen.
the veil.
It's
And
really
he said it was
pretty.
carved. I said, I just wondered if somebody went out there and put muslin over it.
Backside's
Turn it
probably
over.
better.
Yeah. Now, that was before we cleaned it. We went
Yeah.
back and cleaned
Yeah.
it later, another trip. But that is,
There's
all,
the
it's all Carrara.
little monument.
It looks like she's wearing a veil.
Wonder when that was, that's,
Big magnolia tree over the clay
yeah, I can see the magnolia, the bush.
plot. And everything's green around it from that magnolia tree.
Take them out there.
Yeah, that's where the clay house used to be.
That chair that,
See that?
Yeah,
See it
that
over
open
there?
space, yeah.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Now, at one
It's got
time,
a little design in it too.
Uh-huh.
they owned some property down there, about 4 or 5
Now, who
store
was this?
buildings.
Was Sue,
And they sold
Yeah,
it
that's
off,
the,
I don't know,
monument
way
of the
back.
clay plot.
just a,
That's what
just
it, John, I
the
think
plate
John
lot.
lifted this out of $600,
Okay.
$700 or something.
Who
And
did?
it was John, my brother. We
Oh
borrowed
yeah, I
money.
think that's what we were
Yeah.
discussing earlier today.
But they sold one time, they had it, and this fellow bought it, said he had a crippled daughter, and they wanted to set up some type of thing for her. But I didn't know they used to get rental checks down there from out every whipstitch daddy and Annie Clay and all of them, get them and divide them up. Annie was secretary of it. And they had about every month or so that check, but it was 4 or 5 business thing, but they sold that years ago. I just,
Where was that?
There in Tyler someplace. It was business, 4 or 5 storefronts, store buildings, connected. And they reached them and all that, and they finally sold it. I think a fellow named Rosenberg or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Crippled daughter.
All right.
And he bought it for her, bought it from at the time. I was way back. I remember talking about it. And they finally decided it's too much trouble to hold on to and always repairing and doing it. And that and the other, they'd always send up, said, need this done, needed that done.
That's Archie
That's the
Clay.
markers.
Young. Fletcher. This is the right.
Well, I was-
Being a lawyer.
E-J-E-L Clay. You was gonna show me one of Grandpa Clay. Did you ever find a picture of him? You said you had one. Or
We
didn't have it
decided
with you?
neither one of us had it with us.
No, we know one.
Isn't that what I sent you in the mail? What did I send you in
I
the mail?
think it was, Jimmy.
Was
I think it was the
that the
older-
one with the beard?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you sent me
Yeah.
that.
You know
one.
what, that, even Tom was, he came home and Jimmy showed it to him, and it looked so much like Tom.
All right.
Was a good looking man.
It's not like he got with the beard and all, but the hairline and all, it looked so much.
Well, of course,
Tom's got a receding hairline at 30 years old.
Tom's just about.
Oh, well, that's what my son did too.
Oh, well, John was bald and Dad was getting,
I mean, he's
That's
just
7 years,
almost
That's
Clays don't hold their hair long.
bald-headed.
Well, it just so happened.
Grass don't grow on a busy street.
Yeah, right, sure, right.
except for-
It just so happens that my son's name is Clay.
Yeah.
That's his first name, and he balded pretty early in life, and he started balding when he was at Columbia College in Missouri. And we all didn't tie it down to genetics, we tied it down to pouring out malnutrition and a bit of drug use. And pulling this kinky, curly, I mean, he had kinky, curly hair, like Uncle Will Tom. Uncle Will Tom had real kinky hair, and he used to get it wet in the shower and pull it as tight as he could with a rubber band. And between that and the poor nutrition and
Tom swam a lot. He was on the swimming
That's
team,
what I
and
think.
he would wash his
Yes.
hair sometimes 3 or 4
those
times
swimming
a day.
caps do it too, by
And
God.
he would,
And that
I always do
Corey,
that.
I think that
I
he
would go down
started
to
at
Lexington
age
and he would
16.
say, buy me a gallon of shampoo. Now, a gallon at a damn time. Back, they would have fainted down here if you'd asked for a gallon of shampoo. But they had it at, what was that big store where the in Lexington, William Earl?
Sam's.
Or Kmart or
Oh,
Walgreens?
no, before Joe Mock's son worked down there. Oh, it's where the,
I got him more.
where the mega the big market is there in that shopping center. It was
Oh,
S-T-N-G, T-G-N-S.
CGNS or something like that.
Used to be outside the mall, and
Down to Lexington.
and they'd always have gallons of shampoo of some kind sitting in there stacked up. Tom said, get me a gallon. There was always brick or something good like that. But you just never saw
CSC.
it. CST.
Yeah,
CSC,
CSC.
And I would buy that damn stuff, and he'd pour it out in little bottles, carry it in his pocket, carry it up to school, and then we'd keep it here. But he would, hell, he's washing his
I
hair.
mean, he stayed in that swimming pool.
Oh, I had a daughter that was in the
And that damn,
5 years.
that damned,
Well, he was in
chlorine and
Chlorine,
stuff.
probably, yeah.
Well, they don't kill anything.
I guess when they started the swim team and all, he probably was in 7th, 8th grade,
But
all
he
the
made
way
that
through
damn
high
swimming
school, college. He was on the
Yeah, he
swim
did.
team.
Peg, get you a damn shoe. I know
I
that
got
school
one,
can't be
not
comfortable.
comfortable.
Well, my daughter started in 3rd grade, and she was in it for 5 years. She was just white blonde, just real blonde. And all of a sudden, one day, I looked at her, and she was in the light, and her hair just as green as cast
Yeah,
as anything I've ever
Boy.
seen. And we had to do all kinds of stuff to get that green out of her hair. I thought we'd never get her ungreened. Looked like she was rusting.
When I was in college, I decided to put something on my hair. Got up the next morning, and it looked like a Christmas tree. Orange, oh gosh. Ended my,
Or you put bleach on it?
Well, it must have bleach and turned
Yeah,
orange,
we
because
had-
orange is right beneath your.
yeah,
so-
I guess, I don't remember what we put on it. That's the girls and I went along with it.
Well, I tell you what, I don't know what Aunt Paulette put on hers, but she always looked like she was lit up like a stoplight.
Well, I guess that's probably what mine was.
And when he used to talk about how she looked, she'd hinted. That was the phrase they used. She hinted.
Yeah,
her
that's all.
hair.
Go to the drugstore and buy
And
it.
had little tiny spit curls across her forehead.
Oh, yes.
Spit girls, I call them.
Lady came once
That's
a
about
week.
26 or 27. That was the model. All the young girls had them 3 or 4 spit girls. They'd pull them down and plaster them damn things on their
The
forehead.
only problem was that she wore it this way
Then they
for
went
30
to
years.
marry.
Same spit, same curl.
Same curl.
Yeah.
It was something else.
And finger waves.
Oh, Marcel.
Marcel,
Marcel
yeah,
style.
Marcel, that day. I said something about Marcel in there the other day, and them girls looked at me, said, what are you talking about? I said, well, that's what you do to their hair.
Yeah, and you'd be going like this, and then you'd push in a wave, and you'd have
Uh-huh.
hard set stuff in there, and then you'd sweep it around this way, and you'd push in that way.
They had that girl on television the other night, that colored girl, and there's something, she's trying to say underwear, and she said teddies. And they all looked at her like she said, she said, well, teddies in your teddies. And I said, hell, I remember they used to call it petticoat, they the teddies had, well, they had a little one-piece thing they call a teddy, instead of a petticoat. And hell, they looked at her like she was hit with a knot ball, they didn't know about it.
They do call them teddies
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
No, now
Well, they used to, and, well, hell, these bothered people, they didn't, but back when I was growing up, they called them your teddies here. And,
Well,
hell,
they're calling it that again.
yeah, well, but maybe they've come back full circle, but they looked there the other night, and that's what we called it, like he was, Red, what we call it, runs that, for that Family Feud, Combs. And he said, explain that to me, what is that? I think he knew, but some of the younger ones on there didn't. I said, Lord God, yes, they're getting back to,
What goes around comes around.
yeah.
I don't know where that write-up was, but it had a lot of Kentucky women. But they were talking about a photographer, a woman dentist, a woman attorney.
Yeah.
And I think that is the only picture I've ever seen of my grandmother that was face on. Because most of the time photographers
Profile.
take profiles or semi-profiles and never go head on.
One's a county superintendent, one's a lumber queen.
Let's see.
Was that from stacking lumber or entertaining the lumberjacks? Be hard to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Molly Pitcher. Marty Carter and her plow horse.
Laying down.
He's gotten awful quiet. He's a sweet boy.
Yeah.
He is.
My second kid.
Fort Worth for perhaps 2 weeks.
The little one is good, but he can talk you to death.
All right. Sean?
How old is Sean?
He's 2 and
Yeah, my grandson's finally discovered that he can communicate. He does his share. He'd rather be throwing ball. I tell you, that's the most ball-oriented kid I've ever seen in my life. First words he ever said was ball. He's a hole.
You have to give Sean an answer. You just can't. It's
Well,
either-
Benjamin will take your face and turn it around.
No, Sean will.
You're not paying attention.
Sure, she looks like she could sure hold you down and
Sometimes I'll
drill
tell
your
him-
jaw out there, big old lefty gal.
Yeah, but look how pretty
I'll tell him
she is.
I'm
Mm,
broke,
she's pretty
he'll
good.
want me to get up and do something, and I'll
Cora
say,
and
"Maybe he's
Lynn's
broke."
Combs. Now, these
He'll
are the
come and
Combs,
rub my hands and
What do they
legs,
do?
get down and look at them.
photographers. I bet they're the one down Mount Sterling.
Is it
Cora
John?
Wilson Stewart wrote this. Yeah, these Combs sisters. Well, they was old maids. I was a great big old boy. My Auntie Willett dragged me off. I've got the pictures here made by the Combs girl. She'd drag us off. That was on the place to have your picture made was down at the Combs girls. Old Miss Hurt had a studio here, but hell, you went to Mount Sterling and had the Combs girls. That was all my Auntie would talk about.
I think I've seen that on some pictures at the
Cora
bottom.
and Lena Combs, photographers.
Okay, they were written up at the same time. I don't know why.
This is a Kentucky paper. Cora Wilson Stewart, that's the one we talked about. I'm gonna go wrote the article. The one that used to work for Dad and
It looked to me
Yeah.
like that was out of a magazine, though. It doesn't look like a newspaper. It was slick. It looked like a magazine. So I don't know what she was writing it for, but it sure. Did you get to see this one of Will Tom Clay?
when he little.
Yeah.
That's a cute picture, precious.
Look at him with the puddle in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah, he got that fur in his mouth. He got nose his pee-pee when he shouldn't have.
That's the second lady to be admitted to the practice of law in
In
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
That may have come out of parade.
Well, Tom.
That paper.
May very well have, but it's been in my family for a long time.
Yeah, I saw Uncle
long
Will Tom the one time. The only time saw him.
Well, you should have taken him home with you, because next time you saw him, he was dead.
Yeah.
But the Clays, the Clays that I knew, Uncle Ben and Uncle Wilt, I didn't know Uncle
Yeah.
Wilt, but I saw pictures of him. But they had super kinky curly hair, really curly hair. But his hair was thick in this picture. Of course, if she'd let him live a little longer, no telling whether he'd got
You
involved
see
in
it
it.
just now.
Wonder how old he was when he died, Polly.
We've got the tombstone. It's in here in this,
The Will Tom.
yeah. And
Well,
of
I
course,
see he was-
Lawsy Clay was a baby that died.
Huh?
Lawsy Clay. See, Archie Clay was the only girl that E.L. and Sue Hill Clay had.
Yeah.
All the rest were boys, and one of them was Lawsy, and he died. And when E.L. Clay died and left Sarah Hill Clay a widow, they had a mercantile store. And the story goes that Emmett Clay, which was your dad's brother, frittered away all the money. I don't know if he gambled it away or what. So his mom was real angry with him because that was what was going to take care of her and, her family. And he went to Mexico and he opened up the first Kodak franchise in Mexico City. Made big, big bucks.
Dad said he made a fortune.
And he sent back the money that he had frittered away of Sue Hill Clay. But he never came back to Texas.
Dad told me that I think he came back to Texas one time after he left. And that was during the Pancho Villa days when Pancho was raiding down there. Dad said he knocked on the door one night and they went to the door and he had an ox cart. And he had a couple of tubfuls of Mexican gold coins that he had smuggled out of Mexico. They had this thing on, you couldn't bring anything out. And Dad said he brought that up to Texas. And then he went right on back, maybe that night or that after that lifetime, any of them saw him alive.
Would any of y'all drink a cup of coffee?
Because I was gonna say Dad would get letters
Thank you.
2 or 3 times after, I'll take a little tea, that he'd have a little, no, it was ever any big amounts, but
That might be kinda
he'd
good.
have a bank
They're
account,
already made.
Okay.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, about $800. And I know Dad said, well, his estate was settled up, he guessed in Mexico that he had a wife and children down there. There's nothing, they were trying to get some trace of him. But he had sent money, Dad said he had sent money all over the damn world. I had some in Switzerland one time. And he said it just, the economy was unstable and everything in Mexico. But
Still
Dad
is.
said, yeah, Dad said that he'd made a damn fortune out of it. Because he said everything in that Chihuahua, whatever province he was in, said every damn Kodak film that was sold, that was just about the time the tourism business got big down there. He got a percentage of it, whether he handled it or not, he had that damn franchise. He got in on the ground floor, and anything that Kodak seal was sold down there, he got a kickback. And Dad knew more about it. He had written Dad. Now Dad would hear from him every once in a while, but not really once or 20, 25 years he'd get a notice something from him, something like that. No, but
Didn't exactly bombard him.
yeah,
with
but
news.
news, but in other words, like Australia, everybody knew it was down there, but at one time, I know Dad told me that at that time that we had two Mexican first cousins. And I never did go into it, but I think, didn't he live in Mexico City or what?
Yeah. Supposedly in Mexico City, and I understand he had a whole bunch more to
Now, do
do.
you use artificial sweetening or?
As is, thank you. I do not think Money looked like her mother. I don't think she looked like the Clays at all. And she doesn't really look that much like her dad, but she looks more like her dad than she does her mom. And Archie had a picture, I don't think I showed Kitty in California.
We couldn't get over going back to the old stuff William Earl says about how they all go for the name John and Jim. By God, it's about,
And they keep the Lawsons and the Edwins in it too.
yeah, oh yeah.
Edwin
John
Lawson,
Lawson,
yeah.
that was John's middle name.
Richard Marston.
Now, who was the cousins in the thing? That was Dad's middle name. Then his dad's sister married a cousin?
No, let's see.
I've heard him say an old friend of somebody that Dad thought of, they thought a whole lot of, and they named Dad James Cousins.
No, the cousins were relatives.
Was it?
How was that? They lived right across the street from Uncle Will Tom for years and years. Shuford cousins. And I think, Sue Hill Clay's sister married a cousin.
Well, I know it's somebody in the family. That one of Dad's sisters married a cousin or something, or one of Dad's.
No, it's your dad's mother's sister.
Daddy's mother's sister married a cousin. That was where he got it.
Or she wasn't a cousin. She was Hill.
And then
They
Lawson,
turned the burner on here last night. and
was
fixed
John
the
Lawson.
supper. And
Lawson
went to do
crops
something
up pretty
else, and
often
I
too.
turned it
Huh?
down, frying
Lawson
potatoes, and come
crops
back,
up pretty often.
and the
Yeah.
burner was still red hot.
Lawsy is
And
one
I
of
had to drop the
them.
potatoes off of it.
Will Tom
and
died in '32,
Set them over, turned the things down to low,
and
and
I don't think your
set
dad
the
came
table,
to the
fixed
funeral.
No, I
the
know
or
he didn't.
something, turned back
Well, I
around,
remember
that
he
thing was
couldn't.
still red
Red
hot.
hot.
Every place you turned,
I know
it was
he was
getting
out there,
red
he was
hot.
writing a telegram to send back.
I've had to do
his
that.
regrets that he couldn't
And,
attend.
but then I turned it
I can
off and then
remember
turned
that. I
it,
remember the one
turned
that
it
went
low
on
and it
this-
stayed low.
Uncle Will Tom.
But that's really strange
Well,
at that
my mother
time.
says
Jimmy said,
that
you
when they
just
came and
turned it
got
off
her
high and went off
2
and
doors
left it. I
away,
said, I did
and Uncle Will
not.
Tom was writhing around on the front porch holding his throat.
In fact, that
And
happened. I thought
Aunt
the thermostat
Paulette
had gone
was
up in the
standing
stove.
in the bedroom.
And then I
with that
turned it
big
all the way
intercom
off and
and right
cooled
off from
down.
there,
And then I turned
was
it
the
to the
bedroom.
temperature, you know, which was
or
between
was later
simmer and
on.
low, and it
Back
stayed
on the
there.
other side was the parlor and the
Sometimes
dining
he
room.
turns the
and then
stove
the
off,
kitchen.
he'll turn it back
And
when
she
he
was
turns
in
it
the
off,
living,
which I
she
don't
was,
like to
had
do.
ceiling
I
to
like
floor
to
windows.
come
Look at
on.
And that they could
full
see
cycle.
the
Yeah.
lace curtains
So I just
fluttering.
wondered maybe if
Where
that had.
my
That
mother
could
was
cause,
watching. She
I
been
may
there
have
watching.
turned it, you know, even
And my
back.
Yeah.
mother kept calling, Aunt Paulette, come out and help us, come out and help us. Uncle Will Tom's dying. And said she didn't
But
come
I
out.
don't, I like.
And she told my
In
mother
fact, that
later, you're
occurred to me
wrong,
that I
I
may have
wasn't in
turned it
there,
the
I didn't
wrong
know
way, you know,
anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my mother just vowed and declared. And then when Aunt Paulette was dying, my sister came back. My sister, whose name is also Archie, came back from California and took care of Aunt Paulette. And was with her when she died. But in fact, Aunt Paulette had promised her this ring. It was onyx. You hadn't met Archie? I think Bill saw it. It was black onyx, and then it had diamonds around it, and then a diamond in the center. And Aunt Paulette said, now, Archie, I'm going to give you this ring when I die. I want you to have this ring. But her hands were swollen. She was in
Yeah.
jello, uremic poisoning, and guts heart failure. And so Archie, she said, I can't wear my ring. Would you take it down to Pratt's Jewelers and get it made bigger for me? I like to wear my ring. And so Archie did, and she went down there, and then I think the next day Aunt Paulette said, honey, would you go down and pick up my ring? I feel lost without my ring. And so Archie went down there and was paying for it at Pratt's Jeweler, and somebody came running in and said, Miss Clay's died. Your Aunt Paulette's died. And Archie said, I guess they're all just crooked as all get out. My sister said she took that ring from Pratt's Jeweler, went across the street to Gordon Jewelers, and said, size it to fit me. And she said that was her payment for standing there and nursing Aunt Paulette when she died. Then the son showed up. She had 2 sons, Aunt Paulette did. And when one of her sons got kicked by an army mule in World War I and fell into a campfire and was badly burned. And he kept calling out for his mother. She came to Tyler and she told everyone she'd never been married and she wouldn't tell them much. I think she identified herself by her maiden name rather than her married name, which was T.S. Sanchez, some strange name, T-S-O-N-G-E-S. But she never identified herself by that name. She identified herself as Harriet Paulette Rather and set her cap for Uncle Will Tom, and he was quite a bit younger than she was. And so nobody knew she'd ever been married. Nobody knew she had any kids by a previous marriage. And she said she never wanted to have any children. And Will Tom said, well, I guess we won't have any children. They got married, and that's when she told him, if you ever are unfaithful to me, I'll kill you. And then she started repeating it a little more often when I think she started picking up on the fact that he was catting around. But the son got burned real badly in an army campfire and kept calling her name, mother, 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 and they called her long distance. And the Red Cross did and said, your son wants you. And can you come? And she said, I don't have a son. And she just totally denied. He'd been raised by his grandparents. Both boys had been raised by the grandparents. So when she died, they were stunned when this son arrived on the scene. And only her attorney knew his name. And so he showed up for the funeral. And my mother was stunned because she'd heard rumors from her mother, because her mother and Aunt Paulette were pretty close. And she'd heard rumors, but she had never heard the name or knew for sure there were any kids. And this guy showed up at the funeral, and he just flat took over, took everything. The only thing that was left to the Clays out of the whole estate was the house and the property it sat on, which was half a city block. Actually, from the front easement to the alleyway, it was half that city block. Uncle Ben had taken where that left off to the next city block, and he lived in a little corner of it, and he rented out the remainder of the property to revivals and camp meetings and stuff like that. So he'd taken his part of the property early on before he died. And so she had, they called her the Saint of Ferguson Street, because she'd sit out on the front porch and wave and call cheery greetings to people as they went by. And Beth's cousin was sit out on the porch across the street, and that was her mother-in-law's sister's daughter-in-law or something like that. You know, they were all kin. And people walk up down the street and they'd say, well, hello, Aunt Paul, and she'd wave, and they'd go on their way. So the Baptist church right down the end of the block, and they had a missions drive. They sent out letters to everybody that belonged to their church. They said, we're going to send money to the missions, can you contribute? So Aunt Paulette put a dime, one thin dime in an envelope, and sent it back up to the church and said, this may not seem like much to you, but it's all I can spare. So they got their heads together and said, we're sending money off to missions, and right down the block from us is a mission. We're going to take over Miss Clay, and we're going to take care of her because she's crippled by arthritis and widow lady and stuff like that. So they brought her money, they brought her food, canned goods, flowers. And the minute she'd get through telling them how wonderful they were and God was going to bless them, the black maid was going out the back door with them to the grocery store on the next block, trading them in for cash. No. So when she died in 1953, that old lady had stashed $125,000 in a savings account in the People's National Bank, and she was buried in the Baptist church. And I tell you, the preacher damn near choked to death trying to say good things about it. Because they found
I
Oh,
don't think he could found much to have said.
Because he found out the whole shit.
Nine yards.
Found out, and they were so angry with that old lady they could have pulled her out of the coffin and beaten her up. So he got, after being denied as a son all those years, he walked home with $125,000.
That's the same one got burnt.
No, that one died.
Oh, that one died.
She had two boys, and she never did ever go to that one that was dying. You know, which
Never did identify with it.
never. Well, she never acknowledged she only had those two boys.
Where'd this boy live? This son, nobody ever found out, or?
It's in one of the clippings. I'll have to look.
Well, I mean, someplace in Texas, or?
I think so. I'm not real sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, he says, I don't want me to have anything to do. My mother wanted to save the home. And he said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. He had the controlling interest. through Uncle Ben, because Uncle Ben had died in our home.
Yeah.
And Money had nursed him after he'd had a bad stroke. Because his family all disappeared and never did identify with him again either. Never came back when he died, didn't come to his funeral. And my mother ran that priest in there at the last minute. By God, she's going to baptize everybody on their last breath. And so she brought the priest in as Uncle Ben was lying dying in his bed and had him baptized Catholic, and he was buried in the Catholic Church. It was a bedside conversion when he no more knew what he was doing and spoke.
Well,
But my mother was a great one for converting. So she got one more star in her crown when she got Uncle Ben. And so he said, I don't want to mess with this. I don't identify with this woman. She was never over to me. I don't want to have anything to do with her. Of course, he took home her money, but that's all right. He felt like she owed him that. And they didn't dick her around with that land. That was, big piece of land. 2 blocks, block and a half from town. So it had good value, had real good value. But he said, I just want to get rid of it, sell it to the first person that comes along and offers money. That's why it only brought 20,000, because it was worth it. It was worth much more than that. You know, I mean, they were
and
selling
she
it.
didn't really have children, will Tom?
Would not have children. Would not. He wanted children. I think the Clay men all liked the children. And he didn't want to have, he wanted to have children, she didn't want. And so, I don't know where his name
I know
was,
Uncle Ben sent me a prayer book when I was in the Marine Corps. Little blue leather, I carried a lot, like if I just write it down. Book of Psalms or book of prayer book or some prayer book for servicemen. And I said about her dad said, yeah, he had one son. Uncle Ben had a son, but I didn't, that's about all I remember about it.
Actually, I think he had more than one.
Yeah.
But when he died, trust me, I was at the funeral. None of that
Nobody.
family came. Nobody came. Which I always found, as young as I was, I still found that awful sad that we were the only family. I didn't know he had a wife and kid.
Yeah.
I really didn't know. But I believe he had 2 sons. Or 2 kids. And when the shouting was all over with, all he had left was my mother and my family. Because we took care of it. In fact, we were coming back last night in the car. And I was saying he was a nice man, but he smacked his lips. And you sit next to him at the table and you just couldn't even bring your food for him smacking his lips. But he's a sweet man. I remember many times sitting and feeding him after he had his stroke. Now we never have been for sure which bank it is, but the Bank of Commerce that was named the Lenora National Bank. It was named after my mother and Lenora Williams. And she had a check, and I photocopied the check and sent it to William Earl.
Lenore National Bank.
And that's a picture of her as a little girl.
Picture of your mother?
Yeah, on the check. Lenore Young and Lenora Williams were pictures on that check.
Well, they must have set up you set up those little banks back in those days. I guess Judge Alley or some of them set up the bank.
Well, it almost had to be Judge Alley because I think Will owed too much money to set up anything. Talk about not having the pot to pee in.
Oh,
I'm sure
yeah.
That's supposed to be where Emmett's buried.
Oh, yeah,
Mexico.
that's right.
And there was a note on the back of that postcard. In fact, Bill and I have laughed about that. We suppose even after his grave, he was selling his own postcards to plump up his estate. Because that's on a postcard. But in those days, a lot of people would have a picture put on a postcard.
Yeah.
And they would send them out like a way of announcing somebody's death or whatever. And I think that's what it was. But it made a good story. That even after he's dead, he's making money. Selling himself on a postcard.
Well, let's see, what was that in the paper the other day?
Let's see it again.
For the Combs and Lexington died and all, but he had put a thing onto his will.
Well, they didn't want that woman to have it.
And so he's
Cancer
still controlling his money, even though that he was dead and all. He was still.
See, he died of cancer at that Marquette Cancer Center they just set up. And just before he died, a couple of months ago, he and the director of the thing got into it. He had read about, well, they had this phenomenal cure for cancer.
That's your mom, or is that?
The little one's my mother.
And they had asked, he wanted to go to Mexico to get this treatment for cancer. And the doctors and all the people, you know, they said, "Look, that's a bunch of bull."
That's how late it's that a lot of people go
Yeah,
down there.
no, go down there, you're wasting your damn time, and you're no condition to go anyway, you're right now final stages. And they threw cold water on him, and he got pissed off, and he said, look, when he left his will, he said, I'm gonna leave. It all amounts to about $25 million that's in trust, and they get so much of it every year. But he said, as long as you keep this damn woman in there as director, I don't want you to have anything but the interest. You don't get the full corpus of the trust. And so they're all in the quandary, now do we get $10,000 a year, or do we get $25 million? So I said, well, hell, I'd fire her ass and get the money and then
That's
retire.
right.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way around
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Don't take nobody.
There's
No
Mary
smart
Lou
ass.
Whitney is on the board, and she said.
Mary Lou said she's a fine woman, said
And
that all old
she
Combs
goes,
went
"I
around
will."
with patting us women in the ass with his cane, said he's a dirty old man when he was alive. That's just one of his big best buddies, his big millionaire horse owner. He said he couldn't keep that old cane to himself, so he's always gigging us in the ass. And yeah, she had her on the other day, and she's on the board of directors.
So his
She said,
daughter, he
"To
just
hell with him."
has, well, no, he has a son
Trap,
too.
she was
Juliet.
Gordon Cost's good friend. See, he ran for governor, or lieutenant governor one time. That's when Roger Carter was all for him. Roger had met him down there going to school in a fraternity, and this Trap later married her.
But anyway, Juliet's not for the foundation of getting the money, but
She
they've
said that's all
got
a
it,
misunderstanding.
they've got it some way, the
Did she get
lawyer.
left anything?
Well,
Oh,
where'd William
yeah.
Moore go?
I think he said he was running up to Phil Lewis's for something.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought he
But that they can get the money, the way it's set up, they can get their money. And his son-in-law, he said, I think that's a good idea. So he's one way, and his wife, Combs's daughter, is one way, and her
naturally,
husband
what don't go goes back in that
back to
state.
her children. Yeah, his.
There he is. I didn't even, I thought maybe you'd run out of toilet paper, somebody'd get ready to run a new roll into you.
No.
That's what you
Figure out
call
there, excuse
thoughtful.
myself.
Do you remember what happened to Nell Miller after Bill Young died?
She moved to,
She lived in Frankfurt.
lived in Frankfurt, moved to Frankfurt with Billy. I think lived with Billy till she died, or lived right there close to her. Yeah, she just moved down there when Billy went down there and got established. She just went to Frankfurt.
But when her husband died, he was just a boy. He was just a little boy.
Well, she lived in Frankfurt, I think, for quite a few years.
Maybe that's why Billy got established down there. She'd moved down there. But she went to Frankfurt. That's where she
Seems
wound
to
up.
me like I have heard Dorothy say that she might have lived at Winchester for a while and then moved on to Frankfurt. But
Oh,
she's
ask
lived
Dorothy next time you see her.
Oh, Dorothy doesn't.
They almost, but she almost had to do something to earn a
She
living.
doesn't get out anymore.
If he didn't have any money, she had to get out and
I
earn a
think she
living.
did work.
I think she taught music, is what somebody told me.
Uh-huh.
Oh, piano. I think she did.
No, I think she even did it on a more formal basis, not just teaching piano lessons, but like teaching music at a school.
Oh, Maxine.
I'll ask.
If you'd call Dorothy
Nancy
Miller, she can tell
Holbrook.
Dorothy Holbrook. She can tell you all that.
Oh, okay.
Well, she's her only living sister now, but she's had a stroke and everything, and lost the use of her arm and her leg. You just give her a ring, boy, and
Let's
she'd
see.
be glad to talk to
What,
you.
is it
Yeah, we're
her?
right out
That
there.
was Nell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then there was another one. There is Sue. Sister Sue.
They all scattered out, and she
And
don't
then
know.
one was married to Jane Caudle's dad. I don't remember that wasn't Sue though. What was her name?
Out in Kansas, or where she from?
No,
Oh,
they
Indiana.
lived in Indiana.
Indiana, that's what they come in.
Elroy.
Elroy.
Well, I tried to talk to Billy Young's widow. You know, I called It all started real funny because when I came to Kentucky, it was to go back to my school and see it and see the fall flowers, you know, fall foliage. And I really actually never thought about getting into looking up family. I didn't know how much was left behind. My mother really didn't talk much about family except talking about her daddy doing this, her daddy doing that, and it was all real happy stories where he was making her a princess.
Yeah.
You know, made my mother feel like she was a princess. And she just flat did not acknowledge their divorce. She hated that. She probably hated Nell Miller. And she really resented her sister for staying in Kentucky when she went to Texas because my mother adored her daddy. She just flat adored him. And so when I came here, I really didn't know that much about it. And I said, you know, while we're in Mount Sterling, it's the first day we got to Kentucky, while we're in Mount Sterling, I said, you know, I think there's some family buried here. Now let's go to the courthouse and look. So we parked the car and went in there, and we asked if we could look at cemetery records. And the lady said, well, who are you looking for? And I said, I'm looking for Allie Young. And I think I'd seen a clipping that said he was buried in
Yeah, you know, the old part of a crossing.
yeah, so we found out yesterday. And so I said, I'm looking for a burial place of Allie Young. And this lady said, with great disdain, well, he's not dead. And I said, oh, I think he is. I believe he is. I said, I have a funeral notice when he was buried in 1935 in Mount Sterling. And she said, oh, she said, you're talking about his daddy. And I said, yeah, I guess so. All I know is Allie Young, is there is another Allie Young. And she said, oh yeah, he lives here in Mount Sterling. And I said, totally innocent. Well, is he an attorney too? And she said, well, he's a lot of things, but he's not a lawyer. And I said, oh, whoopee, I've stumbled onto a good one here. And I said, do you suppose I can get a hold of him? And she said, well, now he's moved off. It seemed like he lived on Washington Street.
Go to the juries at 4 o'clock every afternoon.
Yeah.
Had a write-up in the Lexington paper about him the other day. I ought to cut it out and send it to you. I didn't know. About Allie, everybody gathering for coffee down at Jerry's. Instead of meeting down there in the morning, they meet at 4 o'clock. And talked about Allie Young Jr. driving up on his lawnmower, that he had lost his driver's license the 5th time, DUI, and he has to drive. And somebody, the reporter asked him, he said, well, it takes me about an hour and 45 minutes, and I live over on the other end of town now. Said this thing will only make 3 miles an hour.
Oh
And
my
the only
God,
thing-
where is that clipping?
It's the only thing that he can drive. You know, he don't need a license.
Oh,
And he drives it over to the coffee clutch every afternoon. And I said, I'm going down to Mount Sterling, because Allie and I grew up there. Allie, I'm going down just to see him drive up on his damn riding the lawnmower. He's taking the blade off of it, and that's what he drives around
Well,
on.
of course, he doesn't need the blade.
Yeah,
He's not
no.
gonna cut that glass.
It had
I
in the
did that for
paper, said that he had just gone through a divorce and all, and
Said-
he
Oh,
was
no.
upset
Oh,
and all, and
no.
lost his driver's
See,
license.
his first wife, they lived here. Allie was
Yeah, I
pregnant.
noticed that in one of these clippings, was at that,
And he had this young
wedding or
son,
whatever
and,
down.
14, 15
Along
years
the
old, and they went in to
Morehead
get
was,
examined to
maybe
play
young.
football.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was Sally's wife.
And they come down, they called Allie and said, this boy's got no business playing football. Did you notice? No, he only has one kidney. He said, no, so he'd been born with only one kidney, and nobody caught it till
Oh, that's Buddy.
that's buddy. That he passed away. He didn't live no time after they discovered it. Come in.
Where's my young?
He's in our
Is
sleep
he laying
again.
right there?
Uh-huh.
He
Yeah,
moved in the front room.
He's
Oh,
right.
He saw you coming.
So he
He was there just a
that
second
hit him
ago.
real bad. Of course, Allie always was young, like he's always a toper. But he worked for years for Gulf Interstate Pipeline.
They had
Pipeline
him.
inspector and all that, and he retired, but Allie got to drinking real bad, and then he made a complete flush. And that was two, they say opposites attract, well, these were two alike. And she got
Randy?
so that she would drink, and say that Allie would send her out after they'd lay down. Story I get from out there, and they'd stay drunk for 2 or 3 days at a time. They'd run out of whiskey, and she'd send Allie out to get whiskey and get pissed off at it, and she'd call the law and and said there's an old drunk coming down the street. And they got picked, well, they got Allie about 3 or 4 times, because every time he'd leave the house, she was mad at him, she'd call and report it. And this woman lived across the street, fine
Find
people.
your kid?
He was in charge of the place, and he come in one day and told her she didn't.
Not hardly.
And Bruce later said that his wife was mad at her and didn't like her because she thought she was a little aloof. She said she'd lived down that apartment. But they turned Allie and this woman over to manage it for them, and she run Miss Bruce off.
Hey, I was at the hospital to see somebody one afternoon, one night.
But evidently he
Deb
just went
and
from bad to worse. I think he got rid of her now. They said she was a village punch bowl.
Paper?
And
And
they,
the blonde, just drunk, said she just get drunk and go over.
Now,
to
was
the
this
village.
recently?
Yeah.
Okay, I met her.
is
That's the
this the
one he's-
paper you're hunting for,
That's the one
honey?
he said, he told me, he said,
I
now
give
you
you
go
a
back
piece
and
of
tell
paper.
your
What about
mother
that?
Lenora that my first wife was a
He
looker.
doesn't need
Yeah.
paper.
She was a fine, good-looking
Yeah,
woman.
yeah.
He said, now, but this
One
lady,
that-
she's taking
one
care
like
of me.
He done been married 2 times.
But he said, you know what? He said,
This is
And
I
like-
there's
went on
not
a
another
drunk.
one, honey.
and he said, I was on a drunk for 3 days and 3
You're
nights.
not
When
just
I
over
woke
and
up,
use
she
the
was
back.
my wife.
Yeah, that's right, he got.
That probably was true.
Yeah, he told you that, but.
Tom, Seth, come over
You don't
here.
care.
What you got?
Anyway, I was at the hospital one night, and Allie was in the hospital. And he was out in the hall, he was raising all kinds of hell. They had taken his clothes. Well, I guess, maybe Shug wasn't dead at that time, but they had taken his clothes. Okay. And he called a cab,
I don't know where.
and
Better
he
watch that way,
left
Walt,
the
come right up, put it
hospital
in
in his
notebook, boy, you
pajamas,
seen the last time.
barefooted and all. They had, you know, they knew he was gonna leave, and they had taken his clothes, and he just up and left in the cab.
Can you imagine what Jane feels like with that right up in the paper? Just think of
See,
that.
Camden drank himself to death, her younger
I
brother.
knew that, and then she,
They found out, I don't know how they done it, they got him, see, Camden, when their mother died and left all that estate, he came back here. He was in the army, he was a career. He was in the army and he was going to someplace on a troop train one night and run across a lieutenant colonel or colonel man who used to room at their house. He taught school up here. He later became the, what do you call it, the head thing of Kentucky,
superintendent.
no, the
Presentation.
adjutant general of Kentucky. But anyway, he was, so he met Camden on the train. Camden was about 5 or something. And he said, what the hell are you doing in the army? He said, well, I'm down here at Fort Bragg in the tanks or something. And he said, well, give me your name and address. 2 or 3 days later, come through and they took Camden and off to candidate school. Now this is just the closing days of World War II. So Camden got out of off the training school, commissioned a 2nd lieutenant. Well, he had so much time to pull, they sent him to Augsburg, Germany, and the next thing you know, he was mayor of Augsburg. The military mayor. And hell didn't know ships from China about it, they never, but here he was. And so anyway, his daddy and mother died, and they had all this estate, so he came back.
It's neat,
And he
isn't it?
said, I want you to go to this thing, because we grew up together, we were just separate. And he said, I want you to be my attorney. He said, I'm gonna still be under a never be able to send you up, and he said, I want you to look after my part of the estate. Well, he got $35,000-$40,000 this year, and $35,000-$40,000 next year, $35,000-$40,000 next year, his division of it, and I'd go down and put it in the bank. Well, next day or two, I telephone may ring 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, hell, it was 2 o'clock in Augsburg or someplace. He'd say, well, I'm in Sweden. I'm up here on a leave, 72-hour leave or something. Send me $10,000. And I'd go down to someplace and they'd say, well, hell, you can't send but $5,000 out of the country in those days. You have to get special permission. So I'd dilly around and they'd say, what does he want with the money? I said, hell, well, I know what he wants with the money. It's his, and I'm just an attorney for him. And it's in his account, and he wrote me and told me to send him some money. I haven't the faintest. He may want to buy a goddamn house. I don't know. He doesn't tell me. So anyway, we'd have to go to Washington, and they'd give me permission to send him money. Well, here he was. At that time, he worked up to a major. Now, he was drawing all this major's pay. He made some little girl picked her up one day on leave in Louisville. She was a barmaid or cashier in the motel for the bar. And he picked her up in the bar and married her, and she was living with him. She lived with him until the money lasted, in fact, and then when it was gone, why, she left. But anyway, she had a child behind another married big old boy. But then the next thing I know, hell, a month I'd get a letter down in Italy, a radiogram or a telephone call that send me $15,000, I'm down in Italy. And I'd send him it up. But anyway, to make a long story short, he'd come home and he'd wreck a car and he'd just leave it in a ditch and climb out and go buy him another.
Didn't take long to use up your
And you'd be
inheritance.
sitting here one night and here come this yellow cab from Louisville and here was Camden in it with his bathrobe and house shoes. And he's sitting in the hotel room drunk, and decided he'd come see me. And he just got him a yellow cab, and they drove up. He said, hello, how are you? How's things going? Got back in the cab, went back to Louisville. I got $200 or $300 down.
Now, he got burned up, didn't he?
No, he was in this motel with his with this girl, and she asphyxiated them both down around. Well, anyway, finally the army busted him. And they said, being that you have your 19 years or 18 years or something, we're going to reduce you down to top sergeant, or the highest enlisted rank, or major, and we'll let you serve out your time as a master sergeant.
Peggy don't pay
And he drunk
attention to
himself
him,
within
Bill.
18 months. He took himself out of that, and they said, we can't tolerate it any longer. They just kicked him out. So he lost all that retirement.
I said to
lost
leave her
every damn
alone.
thing, longevity and all that. And then he married this
I've never
gal,
seen
and
this
they
show.
was in a motel
Think fast.
room, and left the gas on and asphyxiated.
Well, it comes on Channel 24.
And it's on a big drunk. He got drunk and went to bed and left it in a little,
Did,
one of these
did,
little fly-by-night motels down
Is
there. Last time he wrote me, said,
They
I
changed
know
all
I
the numbers,
pictured you,
I don't.
I made
Yeah,
an ass out of myself, and he said,
They
all
have
my
car-
drinking,
it's
I
all
can't ever
real
hold on to anything.
cartoons
But he
and,
said,
you
I've
know,
got a
some
chance
of
of
it
going
is
to work
real
with the
ex-
Tennessee Valley
it's
Authority,
called cartoon
a real good
education,
job
but
as
it
night
is.
watchman.
He learns
That's good. He
a
said,
lot.
I don't care. He said, tell them
Something
about my
else he
drinking
learns a
and all
lot
that, because he
from
said,
it,
I
too.
made a
You
clean
wouldn't
breast
know
of
that
it.
he's learned
And they know
anything
all about
because
it, so he
that
said, don't hold
Discovery
any
Channel.
punches.
Oh, yeah.
When you
He
write
was
them, don't try
telling
to
me
make me
the
look
other
like
day,
the same.
talking about
Just
the
tell them I have
planets,
alcohol, I'm an
the
alcoholic, and I have
planet
fun.
Earth is what he's
And he
talking
said,
about.
it won't hurt me. He said, I think
He
I'm
learned
gonna get
this
this.
from
And the next thing I knew, one day shipped
preschool,
his
He's
dead.
dead.
TV. He said it's as straight as
That's
did
a
you
lot.
ask him about,
straight anyway, and I
trust?
said, no, it's
No,
round.
but what I
He
was
said,
gonna
"Oh,
ask
yeah,"
when
he
he's
said,
talking
"It's
about
round just like the
Camden
ring on
getting
your finger."
30 or 40,000
And he
each
learns-
year, where did when Allie Young died?
See, Allie died and left it all in trust to their mother, his wife. And then they just spent and got her, and as she lived like did, she run hell, she rented rooms to people down there and had all this money in the damn bank. But Judge Alley didn't let anybody in the family handle it. He had these
Look here.
trustees
Look at there.
down in Bath County and different places. They looked after the money and then let Taylor and Camden, all of them get into it. Then when she died, they split it up. But they had that much hell. He had a hell of a
It's
estate.
all right now. She
So
said
he had,
this morning
So
it's
somebody
good.
had money.
Yep. Vivian, Taylor,
She said it takes
Taylor
a
had
long
two
time to get well
children,
with
and
that.
they got in an argument over that. He left them out of the will.
I said, I guess it needed stitches. She said,
And
"No."
Taylor had died before Miss Young died, way before he'd gone himself to death.
Well, you
And,
can put one
he-
thing to put my thing together.
Some way, but anyway, I think they give him $10,000 or $15,000 a piece, just a nuisance.
Oh, it won't
Get rid of it.
for a second.
I understand,
Now,
I think the town
Papa.
said $15,000 each, which was $30,000.
Really?
And,
They
Camden and Jane and Magruder
you stand right.
and Little Alley. Of course, Little Alley drunk here, Little Lexi got it.
Faster.
Yeah, faster. He owed it the time he'd give it. Camden places here.
No, she's dead. She's buried up there by the Youngs.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I told her, I forgot about it. She
Now
lost that.
stand.
It looked like she'd been a widow a while, 'cause I think her.
Oh, yeah,
husband
Mac
died at
Magruder, he died way back. He
Yeah.
worked for the highway department. Judge Alley got him a job, highway department years ago when I was,
Now,
I guess Mac had worked for him 15 years.
My mother is convinced. Now, you have to understand, my mother's 91, and sometimes she kind of like doesn't have both oars in the water. But she is convinced that Uncle Allie, as the head of the household after her daddy died, had set up a trust fund for her. She is just convinced, and she knew that William Earl was coming to California. He and I met out there last November, and she said he's coming to bring me my trust fund. And when he does, I'm gonna buy up this entire trailer park,
Lay down.
and somebody come to visit and, to speak and to meet